Thank you for watching. This is Amir Steel 5858. I am Amir Putnam. I am thankful to all news resources following other news which have been reported by American, European, Canadian, African, Asian channels, and also reported by news agencies, writers, AFP, AP. Now the latest headlines. Israel withdraw from southern Gaza as peace negotiations are continued. Millions of people across the United States witnessed a complete solar eclipse. Law to decrease the power of American president to deploy the military in the states. Israel set the date of invasion of Rafah, southern Gaza, despite world opposition. Appeal court judge denied Trump request in New York. Transgender athletes banned from women's sports. Vatican against surrogate parenting. Mozambique ferry accident. Russia, Ukraine accuse each other of drone attacks on power plant. Southern Russia is in flood. Boeing company again under scrutiny. $6.6 billion gold in microchip. On Wall Street, Nasdaq down. On Wall Street, Dow Jones down, Nasdaq up, S&P 500 down. Now the news in detail.
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Palestinians are returning to the devastated city of Khan Yunis after Israel withdrew troops from southern Gaza to prepare for an attack on Rafah. Residents of Khan Yunis say the city has been largely reduced to rubble and smells like death. The temporary troop withdrawal comes 6 months after Israel began its assault on Gaza following the Hamas attack on October 7th. The official death toll in Gaza has topped 33,100, but many fear the actual number is far higher. The Guardian reports tens of thousands have disappeared in Gaza over the past 6 months with their whereabouts unknown. On Friday, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres repeated his call for a ceasefire and the release of all hostages still held in Gaza.
More than half the population, over 1 million people, are facing catastrophic hunger. Children in Gaza today are dying for lack of food and water. This is incomprehensible and entirely avoidable. Nothing can justify the collective punishment of the Palestinian people.
On Friday, the head of Save the Children US, Yanti Surepto, addressed the UN Security Council.
350,000 children under the age of 5 are at risk of starvation as we speak. The world is staring down the barrel of a man-made famine. The hunger in the north is of a particular concern, where people have now resorted to eat animal feed or tree leaves. If we continue down this path of all parties to conflict flagrantly breaching the rule of war and international humanitarian law, zero accountability, powerful nations refusing to use the levers of influence at their disposal, then the next set of mass deaths of children in Gaza will not be from bullets and bombs. It will be from starvation and malnutrition.
More video has emerged from Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza, which was largely destroyed during Israel's 2-week siege. This is Jonathan Whittle of the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, speaking on the grounds of Al-Shifa.
We're here in what used to be Shifa Hospital in the north of Gaza and Gaza City. Hospitals should always be places of safety. Hospitals should always be protected, places of healing. And yet I'm standing around in the midst of utter devastation. Shifa has literally become a graveyard. There are bodies still in this courtyard. The buildings have been completely destroyed.
The International Court of Justice has begun a hearing today in The Hague to decide whether Germany has violated the Genocide Convention by providing military and financial aid to Israel. The case was brought by Nicaragua, which accused Germany of facilitating the commission of genocide in Gaza. Nicaraguan Ambassador Carlos Jose Arguello Gomez addressed the court earlier today.
In the present case, Nicaragua is also requesting the court to order that Germany to cease providing support to Israel in its campaign of destruction of the Palestinian people. But in the present case, Nicaragua is acting not only on its own behalf on the basis of the rights and obligations conferred by the peremptory norms invoked, but also on behalf of the Palestinian people that is being subjected to one of the most destructive military actions in modern history.
The ICJ hearing is being held as Al Jazeera reports a group of 600 civil servants in Germany have written to Chancellor Olaf Scholz, calling on him to immediately cease armed deliveries to Israel. In Washington, D.C., 40 Democratic members of Congress, including former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, have written President Biden urging him to halt new arms transfers to Israel following Israel's killing of 7 aid workers from World Central Kitchen last week. The lawmakers wrote, quote, "In light of the recent strike against aid workers and the ever-worsening humanitarian crisis, we believe it is unjustifiable to approve these weapons transfers," they wrote. Talks over ceasefire and hostage deal are continuing in Cairo, but there are conflicting reports on how much progress has been made. Israel and Hamas both sent negotiators on Sunday, a day after CIA Director William Burns arrived in Cairo. In Israel, as many as 100,000 protesters rallied in Tel Aviv on Saturday, calling for a deal to release the hostages and for new elections. One of the most prominent Palestinian prisoners jailed has died from cancer in an Israeli prison. The novelist Walid Daka had spent the past 38 years locked up after being arrested for killing an Israeli soldier. Rights groups have been pressuring Israel to release him, saying he was in dire need of medical attention. Last month, Amnesty International called for his release, saying that since October 7th, he'd been tortured, humiliated, and denied family visits. Protests over Israel's assault on Gaza continue across the globe. In California, 20 students at Pomona College were arrested Friday after occupying the office of the school's president. The students were protesting the removal of a mock apartheid wall that had been built on campus. The students were also calling for Pomona College to divest from companies aiding Israel's occupation. The International Atomic Energy Agency is warning recent drone strikes on a nuclear reactor at the Russian-controlled Zaporizhzhia plant in Ukraine could increase the risk of a major nuclear accident. The IAEA did not say who carried out the strikes, but Russia's accused Ukraine of carrying out 3 recent drone strikes on Zaporizhzhia, the largest nuclear plant in Europe. In other news from Ukraine, Russia is continuing to intensify its attacks on Kharkiv, Ukraine's second-largest city. On Saturday, at least 7 people died in drone strikes that hit residential areas. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has warned Ukraine could soon run out of air defense missiles.
Сьогоднішня інтенсивність росіян достатньо висока.
The current intensity of Russia is quite high. As of today, we have a reserve of air defense missiles, but I believe we need to think about tomorrow. The intensity could stay the same, and then we wouldn't have enough. If they keep hitting Ukraine every day the way they have for the last month, we might run out of missiles.
Zelensky's comments come as Republican lawmakers in Washington remain deeply divided over sending more military aid to Ukraine. The embattled Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson is expected to unveil a new Ukraine funding bill in the coming days. The United States, Japan, Australia, and the Philippines are holding their first joint war exercises in the South China Sea. On Thursday, President Biden's planning to host Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida and Philippines President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. at the White House. On Sunday, the Chinese military held surprise Navy drills in the South China Sea to counter the U.S.-led war games. Over the weekend, U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen met with Chinese Premier Li Qiang in Beijing. Yellen said U.S.-China relations are now on a, quote, more stable footing.
As I have said, the United States seeks a healthy economic relationship with China that benefits both sides. But a healthy relationship must provide a level playing field for firms and workers in both countries.
During an interview on CNBC, Yellen refused to rule out tariffs on Chinese green exports as China ramps up production of solar power technology, electric vehicles, and lithium batteries. Mexico's cut diplomatic ties with Ecuador and withdrew its embassy personnel from Quito after Ecuadorian police and military forces raided the Mexican embassy Friday to arrest former Ecuadorian Vice President Jorge Glass, who had taken refuge there for months. Mexico had granted him asylum protections just hours before dozens of police and military forces stormed the Mexican embassy. Glass served under former leftist Ecuadorian President Rafael Correa. Glass is being investigated for corruption and was previously convicted on graft charges, which he and allies have denounced as politically motivated. The raid on Mexico's embassy in Quito has sparked condemnation across Latin America and the world. This is Mexican Foreign Minister Alicia Bárcena.
Mexico repeats its condemnation of the violation of the immunity of its embassy in Quito and the aggression towards its staff.
Por instrucciones del presidente
As per instructions of President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, we are coordinating the return of all our diplomatic staff in Ecuador, along with their families, after the violent attack carried out by the Ecuadorian police in our embassy on the night of Friday, April 5th.
Rwanda is holding a week of commemorations marking the 30th anniversary of the 1994 genocide, during which up to 1 million Tutsis and moderate Hutus were killed by militia members. Rwandan President Paul Kagame said in a speech Sunday, the international community, quote, failed all of us. This is Alan Nagari of Human Rights Watch.
That this should never happen again. And we have a classical example of a country that at the time was seen to be of no strategic importance when the lives of so many people were at stake. We had a United Nations peacekeeping operation that was effectively dismantled, and its size was reduced drastically at the point where the Rwandan people really needed the international community to speak up and actually reinforce that peacekeeping operation. And because the international community failed to do so, then we lost over 800,000 people.
In 2021, French President Emmanuel Macron acknowledged France's role in failing to stop the genocide. Declassified U.S. documents show the Clinton administration refused to label the 1994 mass killings in Rwanda as a genocide. One State Department document read, "Be careful, genocide finding could commit the U.S. government to actually do something," unquote. Israeli President Isaac Herzog traveled to Rwanda for the 30-year commemoration, where he met with President Kagame. Kagame has been president since 2000 and has led a harsh crackdown on the press. He's also accused of fueling deadly violence in the neighboring Democratic Republic of Congo. Donald Trump pulled in $50 million at a campaign fundraiser hosted by the billionaire hedge fund investor John Paulson. At the fundraising dinner in Florida, Trump told supporters he would extend his 2017 tax cuts, which aided billionaires. Meanwhile, ProPublica is reporting Trump's legal team may have violated ethics rules by not telling an appellate court that a billionaire financier had agreed to help Trump post the full $464 million bond set by the court in his civil fraud case. Despite the offer from billionaire Don Hankey, Trump's lawyers told the court it was a practical impossibility to pay the original bond, which was then lowered to $175 million. In Vermont, a man has been arrested over a suspected act of arson on Senator Bernie Sanders' office in Burlington. Authorities say security footage captured the suspect spraying what appeared to be accelerant outside the office door Friday morning. A motive has not been identified. A Federal Aviation Administration is investigating after the engine cover on a Southwest Airlines Boeing 737-800 plane fell off during takeoff, striking the wing flap and forcing the aircraft to return to Denver's International Airport. It's the latest high-profile incident on a Boeing aircraft as the beleaguered company comes under mounting scrutiny over its safety failures. And millions of people across the United States will be donning protective glasses this afternoon to witness a much-anticipated solar eclipse. In New York's Sullivan County, 6 prisoners at the Woodburn Correctional Facility will be among those gathering outside to view the rare event after winning a lawsuit that argued forcing them to remain indoors was a violation of their religious beliefs. The prison has issued a lockdown during the time of the eclipse, which will peak in New York around 3:25 p.m. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report.
Tonight, plunged into darkness, millions gather across North America to take in the total eclipse. Eyes on the sky.
Yes, I see it!
For a once-in-a-generation experience.
It was like orange dot, and then it kept on growing and growing.
The science around the rare sight and the view from a zoo.
My attention was divided between the eclipse itself and the rules. This is about protecting our values, our sovereignty, and our north.
Plus new money for the military, but it still falls short of Canada's NATO commitment. Also, what CSIS knew and shared with the government about foreign interference from China.
Financial kind of tactics using PRC officials in Canada.
and hankering for home runs in a newly renovated home.
We're going to be as good as our star players.
Opening day for the Toronto Blue Jays at their revamped stadium.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina. Reporting tonight, Mirella Fernandez.
Good evening. Day turned into night for millions of North Americans along the route of a total solar eclipse. The moon entirely blocked out the sun in a rare and stunning event. This is the much anticipated moment so many waited to see. The Earth plunged into complete darkness as the sun slipped behind the moon. The first to experience the full eclipse, people in Mazatlan, Mexico, just after 11 a.m. It tracked into Dallas next, then Cleveland, Niagara Falls, Montreal, and Fredericton along a 6,500-kilometer diagonal path that ended in Newfoundland. For some, heavy clouds dispersed just in time to see the amazing sight. CTV's Adrian Gabriel shares the awe inspired by the alignment of sun and moon.
A celestial spectacle for the ages.
It's the most beautiful thing I have ever seen.
Millions across North America cast their gaze skyward today to soak in what for many will be a once-in-a-lifetime event. This was the view as the eclipse first made landfall near the city of Mazatlan, Mexico. From there, the solar scene charted this path of totality across a swath of North America. Standing shoulder to shoulder, eager visitors packed the world-famous tourist town of Niagara Falls, some arriving with their own creative eyewear.
We had a case of beer in the house, and we cut the box up, and we taped the welding glass on there.
Nearby in Fort Erie, Ontario, one couple sealed the solar occasion with a kiss, saying "I do" to mark the special date in place and time.
I thought it was important, like a time astronomically, like a sun and the moon gathering together, so I thought it was very romantic.
Wow.
In Quebec, onlookers received an unobstructed view of the solar system in action, though across much of southern Ontario, clouds persisted. That is until right on cue, in Hamilton, Ontario, blue sky appeared. The crowds cheering in unison as the moon and sun came together as one, and the moment of totality took hold. The significance leaving many to swoon over the solar sight.
I think it was beautiful.
For the youngest, soaking in today's eclipse meant opening their minds to the universe around them.
This isn't going to be happening here again for another 120 years.
Do you think you'll be here for that one?
Probably not.
And that prompted many to make the pilgrimage.
So we flew in from BC, from British Columbia, because we weren't going to get totality there. So I thought, let's do this once in a lifetime.
Nearly as moving as the eclipse, watching friends, family, and perfect strangers gather by the thousands to share this moment and together look up in awe-inspiring wonder. Mirella?
Adrian Gabriel in Hamilton, Ontario. The eclipse may have left some people awestruck, but it left some animals a little agitated. At the Toronto Zoo, amateur scientists were keeping track of any bizarre behavior.
The wolves keep running around, which is normally not what they do, at least during the daytime.
Especially the bears, they look more lazier.
Zoo officials say they will take a little more time to study the research gathered. Researchers in New Brunswick took a different view of the eclipse, sending a telescope up to gather images, and the skies were clear for the experiment and onlookers there to witness the show. CTV's Sarah Plowman reports.
In a moment as rare and amazing as this, people knew what they were seeing was special. Every minute mattered.
Very exciting. Like everything's changing. Look how dark it got. So I mean, it's just going to be daylight again, you know.
The curious came from as far as California or England.
It's amazing. The most amazing thing I've ever seen. This is so awesome. It's so awesome.
Seconds later, it was over.
Bye-bye.
About 3 minutes and 20 seconds, but New Brunswick skies put on a spectacular celestial show.
Nothing can prepare you for that. That was just like, eye-watering stuff.
It's amazing. It's almost like a religious experience to see something otherworldly like that happen.
As the eclipse began, all eyes were here, on a balloon tasked to launch a solar telescope high into the air to capture the total solar eclipse from the sky and send the images back to Earth. David Hunter was the mastermind.
Things went fabulously well. They went very well. And I'm so proud of our team and all the people who worked on this.
Watching the launch was astronaut Chris Hadfield. He told CTV News he'd only seen a partial solar eclipse as a kid.
In all that time since then, have the stars aligned for me so that I can see an eclipse until today.
From the edge of New Brunswick to the tip of Cape Breton, people looked up in wonder, in awe. That solar telescope that flew high above the clouds today was disconnected from the balloon and fell into trees near Fredericton. A team has recovered it. Mirella.
Sarah Plowman in New Brunswick. The eclipse finished its race across the continent in Newfoundland and Labrador, but the skies were cloudy, obscuring the view. But what they didn't see, they felt when the temperature dropped. CTV's Garrett Berry is in Gander tonight.
Darkness in Newfoundland. The moon covers the sun and plunges Gander into a temporary night. Traffic stopped. The crowd held its breath. But for this eclipse, Mother Nature didn't quite cooperate. The sun's corona, the magic moment of complete eclipse, was blocked by heavy clouds. Still earlier, some eclipse memories for young and old.
I see. The moon is disappearing.
Many made the trip to this central Newfoundland town, traveling hours by bus or by car, and didn't leave totally unimpressed.
No, great experience, once in a lifetime. I mean, I'm going to be like 81 years old, so probably won't be alive. So I was like, should come out today to Canada and see it.
In the crowd, some impressive setups for those who captured the event.
Looking forward to this a long time. Just didn't get a lot of chance to practice beforehand because there's been no sun.
And for those who spent a lifetime studying the stars, it was pure joy at the spectacle.
It would have been great if somehow the clouds parted and we got to see the solar corona, but you know what? It got dark. You felt the temperature drop. It felt very different, like a whole new world.
And this was my first whole solar eclipse, so I'm still over the moon, no pun intended.
And I really have to say that despite not being able to see the corona, the energy of everyone here was still so excited and so united in witnessing this incredible celestial event that, the little bit of disappointment that I had from not being able to see the corona was washed away by just how everyone felt.
It really was quite something to see how fast the darkness came and then how fast the light came again behind it. And it really did feel like a whole new day for those of us watching here in Newfoundland and Labrador. Morella?
All right, Garrett, thanks for that. Joining me now is Andrew Fazekas. He's an astronomy columnist with National Geographic and joins us tonight from Montreal. Andrew, were the skies clear enough in Montreal to get a good view of the eclipse?
We got so lucky. There were some high clouds that started rolling in around midday. Made us a little worried, but they stayed thin enough that we could enjoy every part of the eclipse, including totality. It was amazing. All the corona was visible, prominences, everything. You couldn't ask for more.
All right, so let's take a look at that long shadow from the viewpoint of the International Space Station. How long did the darkness last for people?
So depending on where you were geographically, it could last anywhere, say 30 seconds to well over 4 minutes. And that really depended on where you were along the pathway, especially if you were on the midline, the center line of the pathway, you got the full effect of multiple minutes of darkness. If you were sitting on the edge of the pathway, like most of Montreal where I was, you got anywhere from 30 seconds to 2 minutes of darkness.
All right, so not a big window. You have to really be prepared because when will Canada see another total solar eclipse?
Yeah, so you'll have to wait until August 22nd, 2043, and you'll have to travel to Alberta and Northwest Territories. It'll be a beautiful pathway of totality that goes almost north-south, just above Calgary itself. And after that, for those of you in maybe in big urban centers like Toronto, you're going to have to wait until the year 2144. Can you imagine that?
That I cannot. Andrew Fazekas, appreciate you joining us tonight. So the rare eclipse generated another rare event. Politicians, usually at odds, coming together.
All right, just a little sliver of light.
MPs put aside their differences, stepped out in Ottawa to witness the eclipse. The skies and the sea, star in Canada's new defense policy, revealed today. It will boost spending by billions of dollars to better patrol the Arctic under threat from China and Russia. But the new investment still falls short of NATO's target of 2% of GDP to be spent on defense. CTV's Judy Trin reports.
So if you want to just give that, yep.
The federal government's vision for its military is one that protects Canadians from new threats emerging from climate change centered on the Arctic.
This is about protecting our values, our sovereignty, and our North.
The policy document, Our North, Strong and Free, calls for $8 billion in new investments over the next 5 years and $73 billion over the next 2 decades. As polar ice melts, the military will focus on countering Russia and China's Arctic ambitions.
These will include a new fleet of early warning aircraft, a new fleet of tactical helicopters, a network of infrastructure in the north, long-range missiles to deter threats to Canada.
Canada will also expand its submarine fleet to patrol under polar ice and strengthen its early warning system.
That will really answer what our allies are asking us to do, and it's very useful. It gives a focus to our military leaders in guiding their operations, training, and readiness.
With these new priorities, by 2029, Canada will spend $49.5 billion annually on defense. That's $20 billion more than what we're spending now. That brings us to 1.76% of GDP, but still falls short of the NATO commitment of 2%.
After 8 years of Trudeau, our military is reeling. We also have botched procurements of equipment that have cost billions of dollars to taxpayers without delivering for our troops.
But the Prime Minister points out the Liberal vision is more robust than what the Conservatives previously put forward.
The Conservatives actually had us down to 1% of GDP in 2014.
But the military needs more than just equipment. It needs to recruit at least 15,000 more troops to replenish its ranks. To do that, National Defense wants to loosen medical requirements and speed up the security clearance process. Marilla.
All right, a big job ahead, Judy. Thank you. At the public inquiry into foreign interference, we learned today that Canada's spy agency knew that China clandestinely and deceptively interfered in the last 2 Canadian elections. CTV's Mike Lecouture has more on what was shared with the government. Mike.
Marilla, the document is labeled top secret and is heavily redacted, so there are a lot of things that we don't know. But it does say the Prime Minister was briefed on foreign interference in February of 2021 and October of 2022.
The approach and the tactic of PRC is really to do some pragmatic work.
The Prime Minister's national security and intelligence advisor describing how the Chinese government acts in other countries to promote their own interest. The CSIS report was prepared after a number of media leaks. Now, other reports show how Chinese officials may have transferred $250,000 to so-called threat actors in Canada for possible foreign interference.
I knew about intel regarding financial kind of tactics using PRC officials in Canada.
Nathalie Drouin was part of a panel of 5 bureaucrats charged with monitoring threats to the 2019 and 2021 elections. The group met weekly to assess any number of intelligence reports, including a misinformation campaign directed at former Conservative Kenny Chiu. However, members of the panel said they never informed the public because it never met the threshold, and they couldn't be certain that it wasn't just normal campaign discourse.
We have to have at least some reliable information that these aren't just a bunch of Canadians having a dispute about a public policy issue.
Still, former National Security and Intelligence Advisor David Morrison says after the 2021 election, there was intelligence concerning potential interference, which was the closest thing he had seen to a smoking gun.
In this setting, I cannot say any more than is already reflected in the documents.
Questions about what the Prime Minister knew about foreign interference and when he knew it should be answered later this week, when both his Chief of Staff and Justin Trudeau himself will be testifying. Marilla?
Mike is in Ottawa tonight. Coming up, a COVID case in court. A Saskatchewan father accused of abducting his daughter during the pandemic. Plus, the view from the Vatican on gender-affirming surgery. A 32-year-old Alberta woman is facing allegations of a sexual nature involving 4 teenagers. Alexis Suter was also a volunteer for a minor hockey league. She's been pulled from that position. Suter is accused of sexual interference, sexual assault, and 4 counts of making sexually explicit material available to a child. She was the secretary of the Sundre Minor Hockey Association northwest of Calgary. They say her position never put her directly in contact with kids. A man found guilty of carrying out a brutal terrorist attack in London, Ontario, is appealing his conviction. Nathaniel Veltman was found guilty of running over 5 members of a Muslim family with his pickup truck, 2021. 4 members of the Afzal family were killed, and a young boy was seriously injured. The judge ruled Veltman committed a deliberate act of terrorism and sentenced him to life in prison. A trial's underway for a Saskatchewan father charged with abducting his own child. He's accused of taking her so she would not get vaccinated for COVID-19 during the pandemic. CTV's Alison Bamford takes us through the case.
The case goes back to November 2021, when Michael Jackson allegedly failed to return his then 7-year-old daughter to her mother, breaking a custody order and kickstarting a 3-month-long effort by RCMP to locate the father-daughter pair.
She's just as against it as I am, and I'm her father. It's my duty to protect my daughter.
While hiding from police, Jackson and his daughter appeared on a podcast, telling the host he was protecting the girl from the COVID vaccine, something her mother wanted her to get. Around the same time, RCMP issued a Canada-wide arrest warrant for Jackson, and weeks later, Mounties released this video with the mom giving an emotional plea to have the girl returned.
I'm so sorry it's taking so long for mommy to find you.
Previous court documents show the RCMP negotiated with Jackson through a third party during the investigation, and in late February 2022, officers finally located him and the girl in a Walmart parking lot in Vernon, BC, 1,600 kilometers from his Saskatchewan home. Jackson pleaded not guilty and is representing himself during the 2-week jury trial. His ex-wife, the girl's mother, is expected to testify as one of several Crown witnesses. Alison Bamford, CTV News, Regina.
Straight ahead, he once took responsibility for getting Roe v. Wade overturned. Tonight, Donald Trump clarifies his position on abortion. Benjamin Netanyahu reaffirms the Israeli military will invade Rafah, where more than 1 million Palestinians have sought shelter from the war. The Israeli Prime Minister says a date has been set, but he did not share it. The U.S. says it would be a mistake and is demanding a plan to protect civilians. Donald Trump took on a controversial issue today, clarifying his position on abortion. The former U.S. president says it's a matter that should be left up to each state.
And whatever they decide must be the law of the land, in this case, the law of the state.
Trump stopped short of calling for a national ban while naming some circumstances where he supports abortion, like rape, incest, and when the mother's life is at risk. The U.S. President Joe Biden was quick to respond.
Donald Trump just endorsed every single state ban on reproductive care nationwide.
The U.S. Supreme Court ruled to overturn Roe v. Wade. Biden pledges to restore it if reelected. The Vatican has affirmed its opposition to gender-affirming surgery and surrogacy. The 20-page declaration endorsed by Pope Francis called both a threat to human dignity. The trans community calls the new doctrine hurtful. After the break, Blue Jays baseball is back. A new season in a new-look stadium in Toronto. The Blue Jays started their summer season in style, squashing Seattle in the home opener. The team jumped out to an early lead, maybe inspired by the upgrades to their stadium, meant to give the ballpark a better feel for fans and players. The final score tonight, 5-2. That's a wrap on the day. Thanks for sharing your time with us. We leave you with awesome images of that total solar eclipse that crossed North America. I'm Morella Fernandez. Heather Butts is here tomorrow. Good night.
The moon started shoving the sun away to block it, then it's gonna start getting dark, like it's nighttime. How did I see that?
How incredible is this? It doesn't get any better.
This feels like a combination of Super Bowl, Woodstock, and Christmas morning.
We have the International Space Station flying over right now.
You realize you're kind of like this small being on this rock floating in the cosmos of space?
This is really surreal. I'm very glad to be here.
Best day all school I could ask for.
Incredible. It was a full body experience.
Here with Reaction 2024 GOP presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy. Well, it must be nice if you have all of that security with you and you get to walk your little doggy, along the streets of DC. I guess you don't have to worry about getting the crap beat out of you or getting your carjacked.
It's another example of the liberal elite being insulated from the very problems that they create. But let me just say a word about this border crisis, Sean. The border crisis at our southern border right now is the single greatest challenge that this country has faced since 9/11. And I don't state that lightly. You've got 10 million coming over illegally under Biden's tenure alone. If you look at broader estimates, that's closer to 20+ million. I think the actual number is going to be well above 20 million illegals in the United States right now. And even if you assume 99% of them have no criminal intentions, that means 1% does. That's 200,000 hardened criminals roaming this country, if not more, as a consequence of those loose border policies. So the relationship between this crime wave and the border crisis, that's not a coincidence. In fact, I think that we are, I fear, laying laying the groundwork for even a future event, God forbid, like 9/11, until we get serious and actually do something about it, both sealing that border and deporting anybody who's in this country illegally. If your first act of entering this country breaks the law, it should be no surprise that many of these people continue to break the law while they're here, and it has to end, and it's going to take a new president to deliver that.
So we learned a lot about you in the Republican primary. Actually, I learned a lot about you personally on the show, is that you like verbal combat. You have no problem mixing it up with people. We now know what the Democratic plan is. They'll demagogue abortion, democracy in peril, January 6th, Republicans are racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic, Islamophobic, transphobic, and want dirty air and water. Okay. Now the question is, they can't run on their record. What do you tell Donald Trump? What is the best way for not only Donald Trump, but for every Republican that is going to be lied about when they demagogue abortion? What would you advise them to do? How should they answer that?
I would say forget about the other side. The other side is full of hypocrisies. If we're naming their hypocrisies, we'd be busy all day. Focus on what we actually stand for. That we stand for the idea that nations have borders, that you get ahead in this country based on merit, not on the color of your skin. That we're actually the party that believes in free speech. That used to be liberals 40 years ago. Well, that's the conservative movement today. That you get to speak your mind openly in this country as long as I get to in return. That we believe in a justice system that doesn't favor conservatives, but doesn't favor people just because they're part of the Democratic Party either. That's what we believe and stand for. And I think part of the reason we didn't have that red wave in 2022, Sean, they tried to blame Trump, they tried to blame a lot of other issues. No, the reason we didn't have it is that we have to define what we stand for. We can't just criticize Biden. That's my advice to Republicans running up ballot and down ballot. Here's our actual alternative.
Let me take a little issue with you on
and
this.
We're going to unite the country more than the other guys will.
I agree with everything you said about you've got to run on a platform, and certainly pointing out Biden's failures is not going to be hard. You know, how's the border working out for you? How's defund, dismantle, no bail laws working out for you? How do you like paying $5.50 a gallon for gasoline in California right now? All of these things. Are you happy with America abdicating its role on the world stage as the leader of the free world and abandoning Israel in the war on terror? However, where I might disagree with you is here. I would argue any Republican running for office, if you're being lied about, you better fight back, and you better hit them hard, and you better let those voters know that you're being lied about. And I think Republicans are too timid sometimes to call out a lie when it is a blatant lie. And if they do that, I think they're risking being defined by a corrupt, lying opponent.
So, Sean, I wouldn't say we disagree, but I would say we build on that. As you know from watching me on the campaign trail, I'm not afraid of calling out a lot of the mainstream media to their face for those lies. But that's not what
you hit me once or twice,
that's
too.
the foundation. Yeah, we've had some fun, I would say, on air. That's good. That's what we want. You can't take it. But I would say this is the unique part of this election. This is historic, and I just want to say it's on a positive note. We only get this once in a century where voters get to choose between two presidents who have both been the president before. That doesn't happen usually. It was Grover Cleveland the last time around. So that's a unique opportunity in this election that voters have at the top of the ticket to say, it's not a challenger to Biden who's offering you hopes and dreams. It's a challenger to Biden who's already done it. Compare 4 years of Trump to 4 years of Biden. That's a once in a century opportunity, and if voters sees that, I think we can have a landslide that unites this country. That's what this country needs, and as Donald Trump has said, and I love it when he says this, success will be our vengeance. That's how we're going to be the party. Biden promised to unite the country. He didn't do it. That's what Republicans are going to do this year, and I think that's how we're going to make our nation greater than it's ever been before, so that our best days are still ahead of us. I truly believe that.
And remember this, the one thing they cannot run on is, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? Because I can't think of a single policy success of Joe Biden. Vivek, I look forward to our next round of verbal combat. That'll be fun. Appreciate you being with us. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.
America looks to the sky with tens of millions experiencing a total solar eclipse.
This is a moment of totality.
Crowds cheer as the rare astronomical phenomenon passes overhead. We're along the path of totality with the sights.
There's a diamond ring,
sounds.
It was just mind-blowing.
And science.
That is amazing. It is absolutely unbelievable. There's nothing like it.
The CBS Evening News starts now. Good evening, I'm Nora O'Donnell, and thank you for being with us. We're here tonight at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the Great American Eclipse of 2024. This place was packed with tens of thousands from all 50 states and 33 countries around the world to watch this cosmic spectacle as the moon slipped between the Earth and the sun, turning day into night and then sunlight into total darkness. You know, the word Monday actually means day of the moon, and that certainly held true today. The historic path of totality crossed into the U.S. and Texas at 2:27 p.m. Eastern Time and then traveled over parts of 15 states through Maine before heading into Canada at 3:35 p.m. Eastern. It was something to see, and about 31 million people live in the path of the total solar eclipse, and then millions more travel to catch a glimpse of this rare celestial event. Look at this. This is what NASA astronauts aboard the International Space Station saw, the moon's shadow covering Earth. I mean, I'd never seen an eclipse before, and it was a once-in-a-lifetime type of experience. You could say it was sort of a front row seat to something majestic, even spiritual, a collective moment for millions of Americans to be inspired. Awe in the afternoon. We were watching, along with 50,000 others, as darkness swept over everyone and everything at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The TV doesn't do it justice. No, this is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. A total solar eclipse. The moon having its moment in the sun, blocking all but a fiery halo of light for 3 minutes and 47 seconds. You've seen how many?
I just hit 7. That was my 7.
And how does it compare?
Each one is different.
The celestial celebration turned eyes to the skies, some waiting years to witness this rare moment. Thousands of spectators in Mazatlan, Mexico, were the first to experience the eclipse. The path of totality in the U.S. started near Eagle Pass, Texas, just before 1:30 p.m. local time, casting a shadow roughly 100 miles wide, moving across 15 states in just over an hour. For those outside of that path, a partial eclipse was visible throughout all 48 contiguous states. In some parts of the country, the forecast called for clouds, but then the cosmic clearing.
Oh my goodness, the clouds parted! The clouds parted! I cannot believe we're seeing this right now. It has been cloud cover all day. How lucky are we?
At 30,000 feet, eclipse viewing soared to new heights aboard special Delta Airlines flights from Dallas and Austin. Pilots maneuvered along the path of totality as nearly 200 passengers snacked on sun chips and moon pies.
It was really cool being in complete daylight, and then all of a sudden it started to dim and got pitch black and it felt like night.
But Russellville, Arkansas has to be the icing on the cake, with over 50 couples professing their love to the moon and back, taking their wedding vows in a mass ceremony, the thin circle of light around the moon resembling a golden wedding ring, but in the sky.
This is really, really cool. It's a once-in-a-lifetime thing.
Well, talk about love in the air for those couples and this Texas family welcoming their new baby girl during the solar eclipse today. The Fort Worth family named her Sol, Spanish for sun, and she arrived a week early to join her big sister, whose name is Luna. That's pretty good. Now, who better to discuss what we witnessed today other than Bill Nye, the science guy? We spoke with Bill earlier after he experienced totality in Fredericksburg, Texas. Bill, this is like the Super Bowl of science, and it's so rare that humanity pauses to watch something together. What do you hope that brings people?
Well, I hope people appreciate the PB&J, the passion, beauty, and joy of science and space exploration. This really brought people together. Tradings came to a virtual stop on Wall Street because people shared this experience. And this experience is understood through the process of science.
Bill, I know there was a concern in Texas about the clouds and the weather, but it turned out better than expected for you, right? What did you see?
It was perfect for totality. We could see the disk of the moon covering the disk of the sun, and I saw a couple things which I'd never seen before, one of which was the solar prominence, this solar flare style event, the coronal mass ejection of these charged particles shooting off the sun into deep space, because the sun is more active right now than it was, let's say, in 2017 when we had another solar eclipse here in North America. And so the jolt of particles off the sun was really visible from here, and it was this extraordinary pink.
It was a marvelous day, and Bill Nye, thank you so much for sharing it with us.
Thank you, Nora.
For communities in the path of the eclipse, it's been an economic boom thanks to the millions of people traveling from around the world to witness this phenomenon. CBS's Janet Shamlian with new reporting tonight on how big a financial impact it will be for the cities in the shadow of the moon.
They appeared from across the country.
You came here from Florida?
Yes, I know. And around the world.
We come from Switzerland.
To see the sun disappear in Kerrville, Texas. Population 25,000. As many as 4 times that showed up today. A boon for local businesses.
The crowd is really big, and it's been getting bigger by the hour. It's good for business today? It's so good.
Kara Block and her family booked their trip from Arizona more than a year ago, with flights, hotels, and a rental car taking a bite out of the family budget.
Did you do this instead of another vacation?
Yeah, we didn't really do much for spring break. We've kind of been waiting for this. So yeah, it's like a once-in-a-lifetime thing.
Nationwide, eclipse spending is expected to bring a $6 billion boost to the U.S. economy, even more than the Taylor Swift tour. No blank spaces in the path of totality today. Airbnb rentals were booked up. In Fredericksburg, Texas, businesses were doing everything under the sun to cash in on the eclipse, from special wines
right there
to a local glassmaker's eclipse-inspired paperweights, all leading to the big moment at 1:32 p.m. Despite the threat of cloud cover, the skies parted, leaving those here walking on sunshine.
Well, what did you think? Amazing.
Awesome.
That was one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Once in a lifetime experience for sure.
Yeah. What made it memorable? Here's that it was unexpected. The forecast for Kerrville was not good, but the skies parted, and we had just that moment that we needed, especially rewarding for people who traveled so far. Nora?
Janet, it was so exciting to watch the excitement where you were. Thank you. Now to the 2024 presidential campaign, where abortion rights is taking center stage. When Donald Trump was president, he nominated the justices that would overturn Roe versus Wade. Since then, 21 states have moved to restrict or ban the procedure, but many Republicans want to go further, with a federal ban passed by Congress. CBS's Weijia Jiang reports that Trump today tried to clarify his position, angering his conservative base.
Former President Donald Trump suggested today that the federal government should stay out of the abortion rights debate.
My view is now that we have abortion where everybody wanted it from a legal standpoint, the states will determine by vote or legislation or perhaps both, and whatever they decide must be the law of the land, in this case, the law of the state.
The remarks followed months of mixed signals from the former president, owning his part in overturning Roe v. Wade, just as he did today.
Since I was proudly the person responsible,
but refusing to commit to a national abortion ban, even while suggesting in the past he would support one.
When you heard his remarks, were you surprised at all?
I was surprised and disappointed.
Marjorie Dannenfelser, the president of Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America, spoke to Trump on the phone this morning and thinks the door to a federal ban remains open.
But I actually do think that he will get there. I really believe that, because I believe that there was something that compelled him to stand strong and defend fearlessly every single Supreme Court justice that he put up. He never gave up on any of them. I don't think he'll give up on this.
President Biden, who was in Wisconsin today unveiling a new plan to forgive student loan debt for millions, agreed with her.
If MAGA Republicans put a federal ban on his desk, he'd sign it.
His campaign promptly released a new ad featuring a Texas woman who says she nearly died twice, unable to get the abortion she needed following a miscarriage.
The blanket that she was in.
And blaming Trump for enabling state-level bans on abortion, passed since Roe was overturned. Voters in Florida, Maryland, and New York will vote on abortion-related measures in November, and several other states, including key battlegrounds Arizona and Nevada, are considering adding measures to their ballots. Democrats hope the issue will give them an edge at the polls. Nora?
Rita Jang at the White House, thank you. There's some breaking news out of Las Vegas. 3 people are dead, including the gunman, after a shooting inside a 5th-floor law office. CBS News has learned that one of the victims was a prominent trial attorney. CBS's Elise Preston has the latest developments.
Suspect is barricaded. Right now we have one victim shot.
Police say it was just after 10 a.m. in this busy 6th-floor office building when shots rang out in attorney Dennis Prince's law office.
All of a sudden I heard some screams and yelling coming from out in the hallway. I immediately just texted my husband, told him I loved him.
Terrified workers hunkered down in their offices for hours, waiting for police to come help.
We're going door by door and making sure that everybody in there is okay and evacuating them.
A close friend of Dennis Prince and his wife tells CBS News they were among those killed. The well-known attorney was representing his wife Ashley in a deposition against her ex-husband when the ex's father, attorney Joe Houston, allegedly shot them before turning the gun on himself.
We believe the suspect is deceased and there's no further threat to the community.
Tonight, Las Vegas police are left wondering why the gunman pulled the trigger and how the community will heal.
It's pretty crazy to think that, it could really happen anywhere to anyone.
Now the couple leaves behind 4 children, including an infant they just had a few months ago. Nora? Elise Preston, thank you very much. Overseas, the war in Gaza is entering a new phase. Israel has withdrawn most of its troops from the south to prepare for what they call future operations, most likely an offensive in Rafah. CBS's Holly Williams reports this brief pause in the ground operation has revealed the ravages of the past 6 months.
With most Israeli forces now gone from the southern Gaza Strip, a CBS News team was there today as thousands of Palestinians moved around freely for the first time in months. In the city of Han Yunis, they found destruction on a colossal scale. Some went looking for their homes and instead picked through rubble for their belongings. I couldn't find my bed or my clothes, said Malak Mahmoud. I lost my books. Israel's military says it now has just 1 division inside the Gaza Strip. The other division that was there moved out over the weekend. The remaining troops are positioned along Gaza's border with Israel and to the north, where the Israelis have built a new road cutting across the Gaza Strip from east to west, thought to be part of Israel's planning for after the war. Israel's military says the troops who've pulled out are recuperating. And today, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said they've set a date for an offensive in the southern city of Rafah, despite US opposition, though that date is unspecified. It comes just days after President Biden told Netanyahu in a phone call that the humanitarian situation in Gaza was, quote, unacceptable. Israel says today over 400 aid trucks made it into Gaza, the most since the beginning of the war.
The US says there's a ceasefire deal on the table for Hamas. An Israeli official told CBS News that negotiations are advancing. But a spokesman for Hamas told us tonight that negotiations in Cairo over the weekend were a, quote, setback. Nora? Holly Williams, thank you very much. Scary moments for passengers on a Southwest Airlines jet when an engine cover tore off. We'll tell you what happened next. An FAA investigation is underway tonight after a frightening incident on a Southwest plane. Passengers captured the moment Sunday when an engine cover ripped away just after takeoff in Denver. The pilot of the Boeing 737-800 returned to the airport to make an emergency landing. It is important to note that the engine isn't made by Boeing. None of the 141 people on board were hurt. Heart of America is next.
This portion of the CBS Evening News is sponsored by Verizon Business. Switch to the network businesses rely on.
Finally, tonight's Heart of America. The only thing more awe-inspiring than watching the total solar eclipse is watching it through the eyes of school kids.
That is so cool.
Oh! The astronomy class from Eminence High School weren't just observers of the eclipse.
I would say before I was in the class, I didn't know how rare seeing an eclipse was.
They were helping NASA, using a special telescope to collect data of the sun's corona.
I think it's really nice to just see everyone collaborating on one project.
Students from Texas.
The eclipse is going to close today.
To Vermont.
It doesn't happen that often here, and it's just really exciting.
Getting a big science lesson and a lesson we could all learn, how to come together.
It's, of course, the giant teamwork of everybody just coming outside and just looking at it.
The information will help scientists understand the way the sun converts magnetic energy into heat, furthering our understanding of the world around us, and reminding us to look up and enjoy the world's wonders.
It's something we don't get very often anymore, is that one moment of people aren't on their phones, people aren't looking away, people are observing something that's a true spectacle in our world and our entire solar system.
We did enjoy the moment. It was just spectacular. And that's tonight's CBS Evening News. I'm Nora O'Donnell from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. For all of us at CBS
Tonight, the eclipse across America, the awe-inspiring images from Mexico to Maine, the total solar eclipse, traveling across 15 states, tens of millions of Americans witnessing the breathtaking sight, starting in Mazatlan, Mexico, then crossing into Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Illinois, Ohio, New York, Vermont, Maine, 15 states in all. The path wider than the eclipse 7 years ago, the moon closer to Earth, the shadow wider on the ground. Small towns and big cities plunged into darkness. Dallas, Cleveland, Indianapolis, all the way into the Northeast. In Burlington, Vermont, one of the final stops here in the U.S., the clear skies making for a stunning view. It really does, it makes you speechless, doesn't it?
That was exactly my thought.
Tonight, the 350 couples married married during the eclipse, the parents who brought their children across the country, the mother and daughter from Minneapolis who traveled to Mazatlan, all for a sight we won't see across the U.S. for another 20 years. Tonight, those spectacular images right here. Also, the other major news this Monday night after Donald Trump repeatedly celebrated the overturning of Roe versus Wade by the justices he appointed to the Supreme Court, what he's now saying about a nationwide abortion ban. The Biden campaign tonight pouncing. Also tonight, here to scare just minutes after takeoff, the flight from Denver to Houston making an emergency landing. The harrowing images, and you'll see them, an engine cover ripping off the plane. The deadly shooting inside a law office, 2 people shot and killed, hundreds of workers rushing to safety. Tonight, the new warning from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, vowing Israeli forces will move into the Gaza city of Rafah. We have breaking news tonight involving Donald Trump's first criminal trial starting 1 week from today. Tonight, Trump's efforts for a change of venue and for a delay denied with one sentence from the judge. The country music star Morgan Wallen arrested on felony charges. Also tonight, after the Baltimore Bridge accident, there is news this evening about a huge cargo ship losing propulsion near a major New York City bridge. The women's college basketball final breaking records, the most watched basketball game, men's or women's, in years. And the one moment right here during the eclipse we won't forget. It left us speechless.
From ABC News, this is ABC World News Tonight with David Muir, reporting tonight from Burlington, Vermont.
Good evening tonight from Burlington, Vermont. Beautiful Lake Champlain right here behind me. We're under a clear sky. We witnessed that rare total solar eclipse late today. Millions witnessing the moon crossing between the earth and the sun, blocking its light, casting a shadow, small towns and large cities, and that magical moment of darkness, only the sun's corona lighting up the darkened sky. The eclipse racing across 15 states from Texas to Maine, more than 31 million Americans in the path of totality. But the scope of this was simply extraordinary. Scientists say 99% of the country able to see, at the very least, some hint of a partial eclipse. Arlington, Texas, among the first spot to see the total eclipse. Thousands in the bleachers at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway looking up to the sky. In Cleveland, the changing phases of the eclipse, the burst of light, the diamond ring, and then the sparkles of light known as Bailey's beads, light shining through the moon's mountains and valleys, clouds rolling over Niagara Falls but parting just in time, the crowd in awe. And here in Burlington, Vermont, right near the end of this journey across the U.S. under a blue sky, darkness setting in, the temperature dropping, we witnessed the extraordinary eclipse right here. Even outside the path of totality today, the Statue of Freedom on top of the Capitol in Washington, D.C., more than 350 couples exchanging their wedding vows in Russellville, Arkansas. New Yorkers gathering in New York City's Central Park, and from the International Space Station tonight, the shadow of the eclipse moving over the surface of the Earth. Tonight, the solar eclipse as it passed over North America and much of the U.S., millions of Americans sharing in the moment. Across this country today, tens of millions of Americans coming together, looking up, witnessing that breathtaking spectacle in the sky. A rare total solar eclipse. In small towns and big cities, the sky is suddenly going dark as the moon passed between the sun and the earth, casting that shadow, plunging communities into darkness. From Mexico to Maine, the eclipse traveling across 15 states, more than 31 million Americans in the path of totality. Our Matt Rivers was the first to witness the eclipse in Mazatlan, Mexico, the beginning of its 4,000-mile journey across North America.
You can hear it, David. You can hear it, Lindsay. Everybody's very excited. Let me just look up here myself. There's just a few seconds left. There it is. Complete totality here in, wow.
For so many, even though they knew the moment was coming, they did not expect this. It was deeply moving. This woman traveled to Mazatlan from New Jersey.
It's amazing, amazingly beautiful, once in a lifetime, beautiful.
You sound emotional.
Tears in my eyes.
A mother and daughter from Minnesota, Cynthia and Tanya, who traveled to Mexico to see it.
The sun, the sky, it's the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. And this white light, it's like...
You've never seen something like this before.
It's like heaven is calling down. It's amazing.
It crossed from Mexico into Texas, the shadow at that point traveling at 1,600 miles per hour. The first state in the path of totality. Clouds streaming across the sky, but it was still visible. Our Maria Villarreal in Del Rio, as the temperatures suddenly dropped.
I'm going to be a little bit quiet, David and Lindsay. As this moment... Oh my gosh. Wow.
This husband and wife, Bob and Barb, riding their bikes from California to Texas. It took them a month, but it was worth it to witness the rare wonder.
A month to get here. Is it worth it? Yes, totally.
Our Whit Johnson with us from Cleveland when he revealed that his mother had traveled to Mazatlan to witness the eclipse. Whit, I'm going to put you on the spot right here. No pressure here, but if your mom is in Mazatlan, reach out to her and let's try to get her on the air in the next 2 hours, at least on the phone. I want to hear what your mom thought, because we could have done coverage with Whit Johnson and his mom. Same coverage here. Anyway, we can't wait to hear from her as well. Let's hope anyway. A short time later, reporting live, Whit Johnson's mother, Sharon. We were joking earlier when I said to Whit, can we get your mom on the phone? Sharon Johnson, are you with us? Can you hear us? We understand you're in Mazatlan.
Yes, I am. Can you hear me all right?
Oh, we can hear you loud and clear. First of all, we love Whit. And we're going to bring your son in to listen to this interview. He's going to dive in if we ask you anything not proper here. First of all, tell us what it was like, and thank you for instilling that love of science with Whit and the whole family. You talked about generations of this family knowing the power of these eclipses. What was it like in Mazatlan?
We had been worrying about high clouds for the last couple of days, and it was beautifully clear in the morning when we woke up, but then we got that high haze coming in. But we beat it. You know, we got the eclipse, pretty clear skies, a little bit of haze that might have blocked some things, but it was beautiful. The sunset colors came out in 360 degrees. Birds that hadn't already taken roost just dived out of the sky into the trees.
We asked Whit about his mother reporting in.
I got to tell you, there's something, hearing my mom talk about this live on the air, I feel connected to her now. 2,000 miles away, she's in Mazatlan, I'm here in Cleveland, but we're connected through this path of totality. I'm getting a bit emotional here. I got to be honest. Mom, if you can hear me, my question for you is, what did you feel today when you saw this eclipse?
I felt the universe. I felt the universe. And Whit, I'm feeling you. I'm feeling you in this place in the universe where I'm in Mazatlan, you were in Cleveland, David Muir is probably in New York. I don't know exactly, but it is amazing, and you brought tears to my eyes also.
Oh, I love you, Mom. You made me cry before the eclipse even happened.
With our Robin Roberts in Cleveland at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame when the total solar eclipse passed through.
The Bailey's beads! The Bailey's Bailey's beads. You can take off the glasses now.
With describing Bailey's beads, the slivers of light cutting through the moon's mountains and valleys. Bailey's beads, named after the astronomer who first noted them in 1836, Francis Bailey.
What you told me is not what I was going to see, but what I was going to feel. Just like your mom said, and that's the truth. It's the feeling. It's a feeling that's indescribable.
I love feeling it with you here. Thank you so much, Robin. And everybody here at Cleveland, guys. I know we're going back to you, but we're just speechless.
Our Maggie Rulli in Russellville, Arkansas, where 350 couples tied the knot in the moments right before the total eclipse. For each of them, it was their first moment as husband and wife.
Everyone behind me, all these couples just got married. They're going to spend their first moments as life partners entering totality together.
Newlyweds in the shadow of the moon.
It is much more than what I imagined. Like, this is just breathtaking.
In Carbondale, Illinois, it was their second eclipse in just 7 years, which is extraordinarily rare. 7 years ago, cheated by clouds, but today, a glorious sight with our Ginger Z.
David, it is the dimness already of what it looks like. The temperature has dropped already 5 degrees, so the meteorological part in our atmosphere has been changing. I got tingles from my fingertips right down my elbows into my knees.
50,000 people at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Our Gio Benitez was there with the team from NASA.
What an event to win. Oh my gosh. Wow. That is absolutely spectacular. Even with the thin clouds that we've been seeing here, you are seeing it crystal clear.
And tonight, look at these satellite images. What made this eclipse so different from the one 7 years ago? The path this time was much wider. The moon closer to the Earth. The moon's shadow much greater. In fact, 99% of the country saw some form of this, even the hint of a partial eclipse. In New York City, large crowds gathering atop skyscrapers, the Empire State Building, crowds filling the USS Intrepid, New York's Central Park, waiting for a glimpse of that partial eclipse. And one of the final places on its run across the U.S., Burlington, Vermont, on beautiful Lake Champlain. The total solar eclipse at that point, traveling at nearly 3,000 miles per hour across the U.S. Just a few moments left before it completely disappears. The swell of the crowd, and we'll see that corona here moments from now.
And there we
then,
go.
Complete darkness.
We have to take our glasses off, I guess, at this point. Oh, look at that.
It's just
Stunning. Wow.
leaves you speechless, doesn't it?
That was exactly my thought. Oh, look at the birds. You see the birds starting to fly.
Right across the lake here. Just to give people the sense at home as they're watching this play out today, this is like the most beautiful post-sunset moment on Lake Champlain. The mountains and the hills surrounding the lake are backlit right now by what looks like the most beautiful sunset you could imagine. The skies are clear. Venus and Jupiter visible too. Okay. Venus to the right here. We're definitely seeing Venus. And then what the scientists call the diamond ring effect. One of the final slivers of light from the sun suddenly swelling into the shape of a diamond on a ring. There's the diamond ring.
The diamond ring is beautiful. It's even prettier to witness actually now in person than what we've been seeing.
Wow. The people of Burlington, Vermont, the families who came here, speechless. The backlight hitting all the sailboats sitting here quietly along Lake Champlain. The water is barely moving. It's like ice. It is really, truly breathtaking here in Burlington, Vermont. Flying in, Lindsay, and I'm not sure if you had the same experience. Everybody on the plane was flying into Burlington for this moment.
Yes.
And I just feel so happy for all the people who got on planes and in their cars and traveled with families and loved ones. Because, first of all, you'll have to wait another 20 years before you feel this again. But because they wanted to experience something today that we can all experience together as a country. Truly a spectacular day, and I thank all of our ABC crews and our partners at National Geographic for our special event this afternoon. We'll have much more later here. But we do move on now to the other major news this Monday night, into the race for the White House after Donald Trump repeatedly celebrated the overturning of Roe v. Wade with help from the justices he appointed to the Supreme Court. What he's now saying about a nationwide abortion ban tonight. The Biden campaign pouncing. Here's Rachel Scott.
Tonight, after months of hinting he would support a national abortion ban, now Donald Trump declaring the matter should be left up to individual states.
The states will determine by vote or legislation or perhaps both, and whatever they decide must be the law of the land. In this case, the law of the state.
Just last month, Trump said he was leaning towards supporting a national ban at around 15 weeks.
The number of weeks now, people are agreeing on 15, and I'm thinking in terms of that.
But now a reversal. Today, Trump made it clear politics was at the heart of his decision. Keenly aware abortion rights has won in all 6 states where it has appeared on the ballot, including in conservative states like Kansas, Kentucky, and Ohio.
You must follow your heart of this issue, but remember, you must also win elections.
Tonight, President Biden pointing out 21 states have banned or severely limited access to abortion since Roe was overturned.
Donald Trump just endorsed every single state ban on reproductive care nationwide.
Biden's campaign seizing on Trump's false new claim that both sides of the abortion debate were happy when the Supreme Court overturned Roe.
I was proudly the person responsible for the ending of something that all legal scholars, both sides, wanted and, in fact, demanded be ended. Roe v. Wade. They wanted it ended.
Today, Vice President Harris firing back.
He's proudly responsible that 1 in 3 women of reproductive age now live in a state with an abortion ban. If he were to be put back in a position where he could sign off on a law, he would sign off on a national abortion ban.
The Biden campaign reminding Americans Trump often boasted of appointing the justices who overturned Roe, taking away a woman's right to choose. Tonight, warning voters not to be fooled. Trump says he supports exceptions for rape, incest, and to save the life of the mother. He won't say about health of the mother. David.
Rachel Scott with us tonight. Rachel, thank you. There is another breaking headline tonight involving Donald Trump. Late today, a New York appellate court denying Trump's last-minute attempt to delay his first criminal trial, now set to begin 1 week from today. The judge issuing a one-line ruling, writing, defendant's application for a stay of trial pending the determination of motion for change of venue is denied. Trump's lawyers wanted to stay while they attempt to move the hush money case out of Manhattan, arguing overwhelming pretrial publicity makes it impossible to find an impartial jury. The prosecution saying Trump is responsible for generating much of that publicity. We turn now to the scare just minutes after takeoff, the Southwest flight from Denver to Houston making an emergency landing after passengers looking out the window saw part of the engine cover ripping off the plane. The pilots declaring an emergency, turning back to the Denver airport. ABC's Mola Lenke in Denver tonight.
Tonight, frightening video showing part of the engine cover on a Southwest jet tearing off as the plane makes an immediate emergency landing. Southwest Flight 3695 had departed from Denver just before 8 a.m. on Sunday, bound for Houston.
Several of us called the flight attendant, and she was like, oh my God, and went and got the pilots.
The pilots declaring an emergency and requesting an immediate return.
We got a piece of the engine cowling hanging off, apparently. Our engine seems to be fine, but we are structurally damaged.
The Boeing 737, with 143 passengers and crew on board, forced to return to Denver just minutes later. In a statement, Southwest saying, in part, the plane landed safely after experiencing a mechanical issue, adding, our maintenance teams are reviewing the aircraft. Well, David, passengers arrived in Houston later on Sunday after being put on another plane. And tonight, the FAA says it's investigating. David?
Mola Lengi with us tonight. Mola, thank you. We turn now to Las Vegas tonight, where 2 people were shot and killed during a shooting in a Las Vegas law firm. Police say the suspect is also dead after a self-inflicted gunshot wound. First responders rushing into the building to search for victims. Officials say it all unfolded during a deposition in a custody dispute. Overseas tonight, the new warning from Prime Minister Netanyahu vowing, quote, there is a date for Israeli forces to invade Rafah, the city in southern Gaza where more than 1 million refugees have fled the fighting. Israel withdrawing its troops from the southern city of Khan Yunis. Residents returning home to rubble. The Israeli military believed to be regrouping now and preparing to go into Rafah. When we come back here tonight, the well-known country music star this evening arrested and charged with felony charges. Also after that Baltimore bridge accident. News tonight about a huge cargo ship losing propulsion near a major New York City bridge. In a moment. Tonight, country singer Morgan Wallen is facing felony charges in Nashville, arrested for allegedly throwing a chair from the roof of a downtown bar in Nashville. They say just missing police officers on the ground. Wallen smiling in his mugshot. His attorney says he is cooperating with law enforcement. When we come back here tonight, that cargo ship and concern over a major bridge in New York City. Tonight, after that Baltimore bridge collapse, we're learning more about a large cargo ship losing propulsion while sailing into New York Harbor. The incident late Friday night near the Verrazano Narrows Bridge, the crew then regaining propulsion, tugs assisting it to port. The women's college basketball final breaking records with an 18.5 million viewers, 24 million at its peak. The most watched basketball game, men's or women's, in years. South Carolina beating Iowa. Caitlin Clark's final college game before going pro. When we come back, the one lasting image we saw right here in Burlington today in a moment. Before we go tonight, one last image, and there were many. They call it the diamond ring. As Lindsay Davis and I were standing right here in Burlington, we were suddenly speechless. Look at this, the famous diamond ring moment in the final moments before the moon completely blocks the sun. We'll never forget it. We'll do it again in 2044. Thank you for watching. I'm David Muir in Burlington. Good night.
Thank you for making World News Tonight with David Muir, America's most watched newscast.
Thank you for watching and privilege of your time. This is Amir Shakil 5858. I am Amir Woodman. Have a good life.